All right, let's get the show on the road. Thanks everybody for the hosts. I see I got 3 people hosting the show. That's awesome. And today, I just updated the title bar, so if you were in here before I actually updated it, I titled it Optimizing Your Map. We're going to learn some of the techniques that I use. There are probably other ways to do things, but to get the most out of your map when it's running. And for starting off, I'm going to add a couple of objects into our map real simply in the map objects folder. I'm going to throw in a couple examples I want to use, which are 2 bears. So I'm going to copy those right into my objects folder and paste them in there. I'm going to load up my map and bring in the bears. Hey Viper and everyone else, Tony Zoo's here. A few names I haven't seen before. Nada Spawn, Outdoor Traveler, and probably some that haven't even got on the list yet. Alright, now I wanted to bring in a couple of bears to show you a couple of techniques you can do with the bears and just give you a better idea of what I am actually doing here visually. Let's see, where is my map class map folder? It's in alphabetical order. Map, objects. Let's bring in bear 1. And we'll put bear, which is actually labeled bear 2. Kind of funny. I downloaded these just today off of ModHoster. And these are just going to give you quick examples on some of the optimization techniques. There he is, nice bear. And we're going to bring in bear number 2. And put bear number 2, which is a black bear, right next to our brown bear. Now, at first glance, the only thing you really see is the change in the fur on these 2. Now, I wanted to show you this. They're 2 separate bears, 2 separate files, but one of the things I like to do is, if we click on bear 1, let's open our material editing panel. And that is right here. I'm going to expand this out a little bit so you can see everything. You can see material is bear, and we have all this wonderful bear material in there. And actually, the funny thing is, they don't have the eye in here as a, but I will show you that as well. Actually, unless the eye is, they're separate. Alright, so I'm clicking on the bear's eyes. Now if you look here in the file path for the bear's eye, look at how big the graphic is for one. It's half the size of the bear, which we'll get into that shortly. But you can see it's in map class, map, objects, bear 1, and it's bear eye underscore d.dds. If we go over here and click on this bear's eye, if we can, it's so small. You'll see that one's in bear 2 folder, but it is the exact same eyeball as bear 1. So if I go to browse for bear 1's eyeball, which this is a simple example, and click there, now the eyeball files are actually using the same graphic, bear 1 on that eye, and over here on this one here, and I chose the bear because it has so many things wrong with it, but it's also using the same eyeball, so we don't need the bear 2 eyeball graphic anymore. If I was in my folder, I can go to my objects, bear 2, and get rid of this file right there. And it's just an interesting way to cut out files that are needed as you're going through. There are so many options to do that with. such as you will find on your map several times. Very often you'll find, if you're importing a lot of objects like I do, duplicates of files constantly using the same graphic. Common ones are your warning lines. If they're in different mods, they all use the same graphic. Just go around and you can easily change your warning lines texture to the same one. Put one in a folder, change all your warning line textures. Liquid manure, fill planes. Basically getting rid of the extra textures means if you only have one of that texture on your map, then if it's loaded, it covers everything. You don't have to load in 50. The computer can't tell if it's a different texture unless. So if you had 50 of the same texture, it'll have to load in 50 different ones. So basically that's first step. You can go around your map and easily change things on your map by checking your textures. Very common also is like planes, like silage planes, manure planes. You'll find them throughout the map. I'm going to save this here. I wanted to show you lots of different things that we need to do to get the map optimized, but that is one of the ways you can check things if you know you have a couple of common issues, common things on the map. Very easy to do. Secondly, let's go back to the object bear. Bear 1, we still have the eyeball. And granted, this is a pretty small eyeball, but I'm going to open up the bear and the eyeball in my paint.net. And here we are. And check your image size. The image size for the entire bear is 1024 by 1024. That is for the absolute entire bear. Just kind of use common sense. The image size for his tiny little eyeball is half the size of the image for the bear. Way overdone. The eyeball is very small, and literally we can shrink it down to 64 pixels because it's very small. Get it down to about the size of an eyeball. There you go. And if you remember before, we have it here, airball. Bear eyeball D is 129 kilobytes. If we save it now with the same settings, DXT1 and MipMaps on, we're down to just 3 kilobytes for the eyeball. Now, it may not seem like you saved a lot, but doing this for the entire map can save you hundreds of megabytes and make your file work very much better than it if you didn't go through and do all these things. So that is one of the things that you can do as well. I'm going to show you, I use a program that's called Duplicate Picture Finder that actually helps, and I'm going to boot that up. It is not free, but they do have a free trial, and if you want the address for the Duplicate Picture Finder website, you can hit !picture, type in !picture, and I can do that right now for you guys. And it will bring up the picture finder. And it's a very simple program, but it really will help you determine. And this is on our, we're going to do a quick scan on our map class map. And I'm not even going to let the whole scan run because it does take a lot of time to scan. But basically here you just select the folder you want to scan. And we have the map class, the main map class map selected. So it'll scan our whole map. And I'm going to start a scan, and I'll show you what this program does. It's one that I use and I recommend it. Give it a try on the free trial and see if it helps you out. But it's going to go through quickly here, and it's going to pretty much is counting up my images. Now it's going to throw up images that are very similar to each other. This can get tricky because some of the images actually are not the same, but they come up very close to looking like each other. And some of them you can't move or replace because they're in special folders, like the fill planes folder, for instance. But you will see things pop up like chaff diffuse, And if you click on it with this program, it tells you right here, map class map, it's in fill planes. Here's another chaff diffuse. It's the same exact graphic that's in map, models, buildings, new BGA, and it keeps on going. Models, vehicles, fill planes. If you want, you can go and open that up. You can check it out, make sure everything's there. Let's see if so basically you have to take, and actually you can, because we do need the fill planes mod for the chaff diffuse, all of these can be changed, and actually this is going to map class vehicles fill planes. What I do is I will use this program as an idea, and this is what I was telling you about. We have 3 liquid manure diffuse. It's all the same picture for chaff diffuse. So when I get the name chaff diffuse, and they're all actually named the same, I'll go into my map. Let's go back to the other screen real quick here and open your map i3D file into Notepad++. And do a search from the top down. You want to find chaff underscore diffuse, because that's a file it keeps telling we have a lot of. Alright, now models, buildings, new BGA, models, vehicles, fill planes, chaff diffuse. We also have the vehicles, fill planes, chaff diffuse, and just the 2 pop up here. That means every other one needs to stay there because they're being called by an external mod. But what I'm going to do is take this line right here and copy it, because that's leading to our main model vehicle fill planes, and then I'm going to paste it here, and it's just going to point it to the same exact image. Now if you look below it, we also have the chaff normal, and chaff normal is right here as well. So if I copy this one and go back up to the top, and I can replace this line right here. If I can get the line exactly right, and paste that one. And I also have a chaff specular, which is on the map twice as well, right here. We'll copy that one, go back up here. Now what we're doing, models, buildings, new BGA, models, vehicles, fill planes, chaff. So we got to remember that line. We'll go to the folder, models, buildings, and new BGA, models, vehicles, fill planes. We're replacing those files with the other one, so we'll put a paste there. If we save this, now we don't need these 3 files in the map anymore at all. So deleting those. And what you want to do after you do it piece by piece, because it is easy to mess up a character, lose your graphic. Once you do a little replacement like that, jump back in. And optimizing really does take quite a bit of work, but spend a week doing your optimization. You'll be happy after you do, because your map's going to run so much faster getting all those duplicates out of there. Meanwhile, as we load up, and just load it up and check and make sure you don't have any errors in your script window, which we don't, so it means I linked them okay, and then you can go on and find another one. And as you look, my duplicate picture finder is going through and still working. It will work for, it says, another 5 hours. But we have 3 potato normal, so this would make this very handy. We got 3 potato specular files, 4 silage diffuse. Very easy to go through and find them. If you don't want to spend some money on the picture finder, you're going to have to do the long way around, which is Let me close these down real quick. Get them out of there so we don't screw anything up too bad. Alright, you can go in and start at the top of your list. And okay, we have the foliage maze home diffuse.png. Actually, don't even highlight the PNG because sometimes you'll have a DDS file and it won't show up. And search and find the next, and it doesn't have one. And you can go through each line, and if we get to potatoes diffuse down here, and you can go through each line in your file settings here, and you'll see we have a potatoes diffuse down here. Let's go up back. This is under foliage potatoes diffuse, which we definitely want to keep under the foliage layers. So this one here, if we just change this to the one up above, as long as they're in here, you're usually good to go. So we're just going to take this real quick here, come down and replace that line right there. Oh, make sure you get the little dot out of there or you're going to have a problem. And you can go down each and every one of your files and just point it to the same file, and then you're able to delete the files that are excess to the map that are in there. And if you're importing, I mean, this is on our test map, which we really didn't do much at all to, and you can already see the number of duplicates. If I was to bring in all different types of silos and you name it, we'd have, sometimes I've literally seen 30 of the same image in the map before, and going through and getting 29 of them out there and having them all point to one is a very handy thing to do. The other thing I wanted to mention, actually, let's go to Picture Finder and see if it's found any yet. Or did I close it? I think I closed it. I did. Anyhow, you also, in the Picture Finder, you'll find that sometimes you have 10 different cement textures, and they're all just square items. So if they're very similar for the textures of cement, you can actually copy, even though they're not the same, as long as they're tileable squares, which if we go into my textures, let's see, no, let's go to objects. I'm trying to think of where I would have some here. Here's my models, objects. Let's see, we have, let's see what the picnic table diffuse image looks like. Alright, that's that. Nope. What would have a nice duplicate sign? I see a lot of them in my map, so maybe I'll just jump over there. And actually, let's see what Woodwork has. Nope, I know those. Let's go over to Rivers and look in my textures. You'll see, for instance, you have, let's open a couple of these bricks and see if these match, or they're not going to match because I left them in there. And they're not square. One of them is, let's see what else we have for, actually here's two that will probably be similar. Basically, I opened up the cement and the concrete. They are different images, and you may like this one better. If we actually replaced the cement image wherever we find the concrete in this map with the cement, you can use the same texture if it is a perfectly square tileable image with which both of these are. It's also a very good way to make your buildings look different. Throw a whole new texture on it. The ones that are tileable are usually square like these, and if you butt them up together it looks seamless. Whereas if you have graphics that are, let's go back in here, let's give an example. if you have one like a building, these are not tileable because you can see it has a lot of detail on it. So those are the ones you can't necessarily use on other images, but the simple textures, you can actually use the same textures in as many places as you can, and you'll save. Yeah, it does take away a little bit of the detail, but you definitely will save if you're, especially if you're having a lot of map issues, or if you're doing a 4 or even a 16 size map, you're going to want to cut down wherever you can. Alright, so that is pretty much textures. The other thing I wanted to show you, if you come across any textures, and let me see if I can find one here. Usually I have them labeled as colors. If you see any that are just a solid color image, it doesn't even have to be 1 pixel. So I don't have one that I could see here because I probably already, they're so small. Let me see. Nope, wood grain. Alright, but basically if you come up with a, say you pulled up an image and your image looked like dun 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 dun. Let's fill this up with the paint bucket. Your image looked like a red square. There is absolutely no detail. It is adding the color to the image, and they're using this color swatch, but you don't need, it's just the color it's taking. There's no text, there's no writing, it's just a square. Those images can literally be image resized all the way down to, and I usually go down to 32 pixels. So if it's a solid color, you can bring it really, really small. And sometimes I've literally seen pictures that were like 1024 by 1024 that are all a solid color image, taking up a half a megabyte's worth of loading into your map when it could literally take up a couple kilobytes. So that's another thing to keep an eye out for. Just change the solid colors down to a really small size and make sure they're all, you'll see sometimes you'll find several of the same color in the map too, and you can point them all to the same place. Alright, moving on from there, optimization techniques. Let's see, let's go back to our map class. This one is going to be a little bit tricky because as a first-time person doing it, there are a lot of things that can go wrong, but we're going to go through and give you an idea of how to export your map. And when you export your map, first let's take our map class map. I don't know if it's going to be any different because there's not a lot of detail in here, but I'm going to take those files and zip them up with the best compression right now so we get an idea of what size the map file is. And let that go through its whole thing. Alright. So our map is still saving. Almost there. Let that file size go up, up and away. Okay, so the map right now zipped up is 358 megabytes. Now I don't know if we're going to lose any of the map size, but one of the important things, a very important thing, and you guys really all should do this because as you're working on your map, you get a lot of extra junk that you're not actually using in your map. So I'm going to create a new folder on the desktop with the same map class name because I have the other one in my working folder. I can put one right here on my desktop And there it is right there. This crazy thing sometimes rearranges things a little bit. All right. Now I'm going to open up my map. And you can see I have a map01i3d file. As we load it up, and this is where you're going to definitely need some error checking skills as well, which we covered a little bit last week. What you want to do when you have your map file open is do a file export all, and then we're going to go to my desktop, and then we're going to find that map_class folder, which should be empty, and we're going to put in the same map name as the map file was, map01, and then just click save. What this does, it takes only the necessary files from your map, and it's copying everything into your folder that we put on the desktop. However, the biggest thing is with this is that there are several objects in our map that actually are not in the i3d map file. So we're going to take a quick look at what those files are. Here is the new one that we just created and what it output. It's all fine and dandy. That's great. This one over here on the left is what is actually in the map file. So going from top to bottom, let's see what we have. We have the chop straw mods. We can check that folder. Everything that it needs should be in there. It got rid of a density PNG file. I don't know what chop straw, and the fruits Lua file definitely needs. So these folders I try to keep the same if it's an imported mod folder. So we'll make sure these stay the same. The fill planes folder does not exist. We definitely need our fill planes, and if you go down, we don't have our HUDs folder. I know the foliage folder has to be the same as well as the map01 folder, so I usually just copy those. Now when it gets into the objects, these folders all stay the same. They're the ones where all our graphics are usually kept, the models, objects, but we definitely don't. We need our particle animations, our particle systems, and our scripts, our shaders, our sounds. So for folders, I'm just going to copy those over and paste those in, and it's going to ask you if you want to merge folders, and you don't have to copy, don't copy the duplicates. So we have those over there. These are okay down here, the i3d shapes. You don't need the cache files or the cache files, but we will need the overlay and the train HUD, and we'll copy those in as well. So basically what we're doing is we just left behind the objects folders, which have all the objects, because if there were any objects we're not using or we deleted off the map in these folders, they're no longer in here. It's an easy way to get them out of there. At this point, what I normally do is I will take the one in my map class folder, and I'm going to rename this to, well, let's see, with a backup, because you've got to keep your backup at this point. It's open in the editor still, so we got to close that. Alright, now I'm going to cut this one out onto the desktop. And I'm going to put in my newly created one in its place, so we can actually load up this one now, and we're going to test this one out as it's been exported. First thing you want to do is open it up in your Giants editor. The Giants editor will tell you if anything is missing that we didn't get out of those other folders, which very well could be something if there's a particle animation file that needed to be copied over that's in another folder with one of the other mods that you guys had. But just load it up in your editor and you will see right down below we have Map class, vehicles, fill planes. Did I not copy the fill planes folder? Let's check that out. I have it in map class fill planes, but over here in my backup we have a vehicles folder that I need to have in the same folder. Oh crap, I did a boo-boo because I didn't even put the map in the right folder. But let's paste this in here and let's load it up again. Yeah, it's fun stuff. I may have to change some indexes. I should have had this map exported into a folder called map. Just the same structure as the other one, the way the old one is. I may have to redo it. That's the fun about optimizing. All the trial and error. Alright, yeah, it's not finding all those resources. I'll show you why. We're going to back up real quick here. Take our backup and do it over. We're going to delete the one we just made. Because you see how I have map class and then everything's there, but in the backup I have the map and the vehicles, and actually the map is in this folder here, so it's one level off. That's what I did wrong. I'm so used to working on my other maps. So I'm going to take make sure I got my map class. We're going to delete that one out of here again, and with my backup I can create a folder called, right in here, we're going to put it back in the other one, new folder, and it's going to be called map class. And what I want to do inside of map class is create a folder called map to export the thing into. So inside here, a new folder called map. Your i3D file basically has to be in the same structure as your original for all the files to find themselves. So good thing we messed it up. We can easily show you what to do one more time. Make sure your folders are in the proper structure when you do the export, so everything's in the same place when you copy everything over. We're going to open up the backup, and then I'm going to take the backup and export all with files right back into my map class map folder. That's where we want to save our map01 file to. There we go. Exported. Now that we have, see, now the vehicles folder is in the right place, but inside, and if we go back one level, we need to have all these files as well. The map preview, mod description, all the ones outside those two folders, grab them all, copy those, and paste them over here into your new one. Anything that's in all your map sample briefing and all those files. Now inside the map folder is where we have the other ones that we need to make sure are over here. So with the folders themselves, the fill planes, the foliage, once again the HUDs, and the map01 folder. We don't need the folders that we put our models into, but we need all the other ones. And the textures folder, we already have the textures copied over that are needed. We already have a map01 i3D and the water planes and the shapes file. We don't need any of the cache files, but we'll need any of the other files in there. Copy them over and paste them and merge your folders if there's already some, and don't copy any existing ones. Now let's open up this into our editor and check out the file errors that we have. hopefully not too many. Alright, so if we look down here, we can go through. We don't have any errors. We've got all the files. If you had other files that had particle systems, and very often things that are imported like the FERT master or the compost things will have a folder called PS. If it calls another file, and we already copied some over here because I like to keep my particle systems all in the same folder, but if it has another file such as this wheat particle, an i3D that actually isn't part of the map, that is somewhere else in there, it has to be carried over manually. It's called by a script, so that is step one. The next step you want to do is you're going to want to open up your map, because that doesn't mean we're error free yet. It just means that everything loaded up in the editor just fine. But if there are any of those particle systems that aren't linked, they wouldn't have shown up. So we're going to run the game on our map. And select an empty slot. We'll bring up the tilde key, which is right next to the number 1, that little wavy line. And open up our map. And we'll check through and see if any other errors come up as we're loading up. If not, then you're good to go. But you can see that we have an error, and I will show you that in just 1 minute, and actually several errors. Doesn't mean the map won't load up, but if we scroll back up our list, go to the top where we got the first one. Very first error here is error failed to load i3D file that's supposed to be in C users Dave desktop map class map model objects trains locomotive blah blah blah. So what we want to do is we got to remember where that file is and find it. And this is because we earlier in our class we put the trains, so it's pointing to it in our folder. It's not actually a part of the map, but the train locomotives are now in our map being called from the XML file. It's one of those instances that I was talking about. And all the other errors down below it, you can see train Lua errors, several of those. If we replace the first one, chances are most of those, rest of them will disappear, because we're just missing that train file. So we are going to go out of here, and in C users, my map class, map models objects trains. Let's go out, close this down. And in map class, map models objects, where's my trains folder? If I go to my backup I saved, which is why you create the backup, and go to map models objects, you'll see that there's a trains folder that isn't over in the other folder. So we know that we need the trains. That's where we put them. Paste the trains folder into our map, and now if we load it up, we'll check and see if there are any more existing errors. It's kind of a long process, but that's the way you get your map down in size and get it optimized. So one more time. Run my map. And see if there's any errors that pop up. Notice the log that time. One little simple thing through all those errors, and which could potentially cause problems, especially your trains wouldn't work. But if we go back through, we see the whole log. The only warning we have is that my map isn't zipped. When I work on my map And you have to have a zipped file for multiplayer. But other than that, when I work on the map, I'm always working with it unzipped until I make my final version. So we go through, nothing else, no problems in the map. So we did a successful copy of the map. Now, at this point, because it's just the test map, I don't expect us to have saved any, well, definitely nothing sizable, but we're going to go back into our map class now and zip these files up as the new map with the same compression I used before, which is best, because we know this is all the files we need. And while that's doing that, we'll go back over here and check. Our map class zip before was 358 megabytes or 367,078 kilobytes. If you look now, and actually it was sizable, so we had junk in there. We probably deleted things as time went by. Look at the difference here in optimized map of just doing that major export. It got rid of duplicate i3D files and combined them in the map. But we went down from 358 megabytes, and this was the test map. We hardly did anything. Down to 270 megabytes. So that little optimization, last step after we get rid of duplicate files as well, is very simple. 270 megabytes down from 358. And let me tell you how much better that will run on your computer than the 358 megabytes. One last thing to give you an idea about is, once you have it exported, I like to do this step because now we know that we only have the graphics that we're going to be working with. And if we're going to get crazy with the graphics in the map, again, what I'm going to do is search map class, and I'm going to go to the search, and I don't know if this is the same in any other. I'm using Windows 7 and probably tomorrow Windows 10. But I'm going to search by size, and I'm going to start by searching. You better not have any huge, but we'll run huge test anyway. The only thing that should be huge is your shapes file, which is fine. Let's go to, oops, size, and let's go to large files. We're searching the whole folder, looking at large files. It pulls up any file, especially the DDS files that are taking up lots of memory. Now there are several of these that I would not edit because of the, you'll want the textures, they're very clear, but there are, especially like your foliage layers, don't want to touch any of those. And you can see that there's very many of them in the map textures themselves. They cover the whole ground. But if you have a very, like this one here, the ATM specular image, it's in map class. Let's open that up real quick. And it's a specular image for the ATM machine. It's 2048 by 1024. Specular image can often be reduced as well. And actually the ATM, the reason why we don't see the ATM diffuse is because I already shrunk that, but I forgot to do this specular image. So you can shrink this actually probably down to 512 by 256 and then just save it, overwriting the one that's there. Same way with your normal. Now you notice it jumped out of there. Your ATM normal file. If we edit that image, resize it, and save that one out, and go through, look at the files that are caught. Now the tree branches, they have a lot of detail, and I'll show you why I'm not touching that, because it covers all of the trees actually, and it needs to be a big file because it's only loading portions of it. So we're not going to touch the trees. But when you get into certain objects, especially when you get things that are totally out of whack, you'll know. Um, Many of these are the Giants buildings, and some of them I even take taken of the Giants, like the lighthouse. Image size for the lighthouse is a 2048. You will lose a little bit of detail, but if you're having trouble with your map lagging out, you can always take some of these and shrink them down, and it's not going to make too big of a difference. And I'll give you one more example of that with these two folders here. There is a noticeable difference on this, but I'm going to show you the noticeable difference. Let's go into our map class folder. And in our map class, map models, I'm going to just copy the swine mast and the beef mast in here. They're two different ones. They're the same file, actually. I put these here for this purpose earlier. They're actually 100% the same. I just named them differently, so the computer thinks that they're different files. In the textures file, our largest texture is the pigsty diffuse. So under the Schweinmast one, I don't want to edit with Notepad. Wrong edit button. You want to see what it looks like in Notepad? There you go. All right. In the Schweinmast, if we edit it, you'll see it's the whole building. I'm going to take that one and I'm going to resize that to half, which it has to be in halves, 1024 by 1024. And I'm going to save that one. And export it. And in the beef mast one, you'll see the same exact texture as look for the biggest one, and it's still the same size as the original. So I'm going to bring both of those into our map, and you're going to see the difference between the two. And this is already, now remember, the top image, it was a 1,000, well, yeah, twice as big. I can't even remember the sizes. I'm losing my mind. Let's open this up. What did we resize that to? Did I leave it open? No. Load up our map, and for demonstration purposes, right near the vehicle shop, right over here, I'm going to import models in the beef mast. We're going to take the swine mast one out of the beef mast. And I'm going to put this right here, just so you can see it. I want to show you the difference between the two. There is a difference. Sometimes it's not noticeable, and you can actually check your images. And let's go models Schweinmast and open that one as well right next to it. You can actually watch in the editor if you change your image and see if it makes a difference in the editor. Sometimes it will not be as noticeable in the editor as when you're in game. But there we go. Two barns next to each other. One of them has half the size of the textures. From this distance, you might have a hard time telling which one it is. If you're going to get up close to the detail, there's barn number 1. And barn number 2 is down slightly. So you do see a little bit more blurring of the bricks if you're going to get, but again, you're going to have to get pretty close to it to actually notice, and the other one's blurry too if you get really close. So it's, do you want to have the extra map size, or can you do with one size down? To give you a quick look at these in game, I'm going to, because I'm not installing the Schweinmast mod, I'm just going to get rid of the script on create part so it doesn't throw the errors on both of these barns. Just delete it out of there and it won't run the script. And I'm going to save it, and we'll look at these two side by side. One has half, well actually we can look at the difference in the file size just for that one file. In our models, beef mast, the pigsty diffuse is 2.66 megabytes in size. In our models swine mass textures, our pigsty diffuse is only 682 kilobytes. Now if we bring up the map in our game, and you will see, if now that I've showed you this, if you look around, it's much more noticeable when the objects are next to each other. But if the original one with the other size isn't there, it's not as noticeable, because a lot of these had to be reduced considerably in order to look good and work on PV2 or even PV version 1.3, just to keep the map size from not being a 900 megabyte map. But we're going to jump in and look at these two barns up close, and that'll pretty much be it for today's class. As we take a look, there's our bears, and we can actually take a look into the bear's eyes and see if it really is. I mean, sometimes I wonder if it needed an eyeball graft. Yeah, the eyes look fine. Nobody's even going to get that close to your bears, but their eyes are good. There's the one that wasn't edited, and you will notice a difference, like I said, compared to, well, you might not notice on my monitor, but if you were here or watching the video, a little bit blurrier than the one in the distance. But from back here, it all works good. Yeah, you can definitely see the difference. So that is one that I probably wouldn't make any smaller, but there are several times where you can shrink the items and it will not be noticeable at all, because the objects that you're covering are just very, very, the original images are just oversized for even the object to handle. Up next on Big Daddy's station, Big Daddy 012678, he's got a couple things he's going to teach us for modding. Implement attacher, I think he said, or see how far he gets. He's got one or two things, so stick around. I'll be hosting his show after this. And we'll be back on Friday with another map class and the weekly preview, which we're going to call it the PV Rivers Preview Episode 1, because that's where we are now. We will revisit. My plan right now, just to let everybody know, is we're going to run these map classes and the mod classes, and Jeff may run mod classes forever. I don't know. But the previews are going to be on PV Rivers right now. When the mod contest is started, and actually I don't even know if I have it up there. I did change the donation goal, but it's not up here, to prize fund, because what I really want to do is try to get a lot of people in here when the map is running, to get the votes up for the map contest. So I'm going to collect some money and give it back in prizes after the map contest is started, to get people in here, see if we can get them to vote on our map.
Jeff entered channel.
And that will be what the plan is. At that time, we're probably going to halt the map class map making just until after the contest is over, and we'll probably be doing a lot of streaming. We want to open up our server public, running version 2.0 of the map as it is released, and get some people in here and playing and just having a good time and getting the votes up. So that's the plan. Stick around. Jeff's up next, and have a wonderful day.